What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's some of my final thoughts ahead of the Game Week 19 deadline. So I'm going to go through the latest team news we've got at the time of recording, talk about captaincy, free hit, and then answer a bunch of your questions as well. So let's get into it. So let's start with the team news that we've got at the time of recording. I would say for any teams playing on Thursday, we probably will get press conferences ahead of those games as well, but it might not be till Wednesday. And if it is Wednesday, that's after the deadline. So if you're expecting news from Brentford about Vandenberg, etc., we might not get that until Wednesday. Potentially, some of those managers might do their press conference on Tuesday, but I'm not sure. This is what we've got at the moment. So for Brighton, Matoma is available. I would say no one should be looking at him right now. Welbeck is an option to start. So he hasn't been ruled out. If you've held him this long, you could take the risk and start him against West Ham. Or maybe keep and then hope he plays against Burnley. But long term, I think Welbeck probably needs to go. On Minte, who some of you will be holding still, there was quite a long paragraph about him on the Brighton website, I think. I've definitely condensed it down a lot here. But Hertzler was saying he thinks he can still do better, not just offensively, but defensively as well. He said there's a person there with private issues who maybe goes through a difficult period. And he also kind of compared it to the Baleba situation as well. So I would say, based on what we've seen recently, earlier subs and a benching, Minte is probably not a great option. And if you've got a spare transfer to fix that this week, I would probably take it. It doesn't mean he'll definitely be benched against West Ham and Burnley the next 2 game weeks, but it's a possibility. So if you want to risk it, fine. But if you've got a spare transfer, I would maybe deal with that. Or potentially, if you could bench him this week and see if he gets back into the team, then maybe play him against Burnley. But long-term, not a great option. For Arsenal, the press conference was after the Brighton game. And there's basically no team news. So we haven't had an update about Calafiori, Timber, etc. My thinking is that Timber and Gabriel will both start. There's lots of rumours going around that Timber was actually available to play. They decided not to give him minutes because of load management. So they wanted to basically give him a rest. I think this game against Villa is big. Like, Villa are doing really well, and it's almost like a title contender matchup. Now, whether Villa will still be there come the end of the season, we'll have to wait and see. But Arsenal played them recently and lost. I don't think they're taking any chances here. I think Timber was rested so we can start this game. I think Saliba will play. I think Gabriel will be straight in the 11. Left back is where I'm less sure. Because Calafiori was going to start against Brighton. Then he pulled up during the warm-up. And Lewis Skelly played instead. Will they risk Calafiori? Will they play Hincapie left back? I'm not sure. But potentially one of those two things will happen. So if you've got Hincapie and you don't want to sell him, there is a good chance he will start, but far from a guarantee. So I think it'll be Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and then Hincapie, I guess, because we know Calafiori had a problem in the last game. But again, maybe that was minor. Maybe they just didn't want to take any risks. It's really difficult to know. For Man United, apparently, Fernandes is definitely out of the Wolves game and wants to return to training already. But obviously, they're going to be as cautious as they need to be with him. Mason Mount will be assessed. There was a video going around that I saw on Twitter which showed what looked like Mason Mount in training on the grass with the rest of the team. So there is a good chance that he'll be available for the Wolves game. It's also worth saying that when he went off at halftime against Newcastle, Amrim did say he wanted to continue, but they didn't want to take any risks. So if you've got Mount, you could maybe risk it because it's such a good fixture, but I definitely wouldn't be buying him. And then Delict and Maguire is still unavailable, which presumably means that Heaven at 3.8 million will start again. For Burnley, if you've held on to Estev, firstly, apologies, because I haven't gone back and watched, but I'm pretty sure on the deadline stream, I said that people with Dubravka and Estev should probably bench boost in 18 because it's Everton at home. I completely missed that Estev was a doubt, although if you did bench boost, you're probably quite happy with Dubravka's 11 pointers. Either way, he's getting closer, potentially available for Game Week 19. For Crystal Palace, Richards wasn't in the squad for the Spurs game, and Glasner said he doesn't know if he'll be available for Fulham, but it doesn't sound like a long-term issue. Now, I should say that's me saying that. From what I've seen about this injury, it doesn't seem like a long-term problem. So if you can get away with keeping him in your squad this week and just holding him long-term, that's probably okay. Because I think overall, Palace's fixtures are not too bad. So Fulham at home is good this week. He may miss that. I think he is quite a doubt for that game. Newcastle away in 20, not great. Villa at home, not an amazing fixture, but if you had to play him, not a problem. Not an issue to play him against Sunderland away either, given how good he is for DEFCONs. Then 24 onwards, you got Forest away, Brighton away, Burnley at home, Wolves at home. So I actually think if your defence can cope with Richards on the bench this week, I'd be tempted to keep him. If you've got other issues to deal with and you need to get rid of Richards, fair enough. You can always come back to him later. And then for Leeds, Rodon went off with, I think, a bit of a twisted ankle against Sunderland. Unlikely to be available for game week 19 and also could be out for 20 and 21 as well. So for captaincy this week, it's basically the same answer as every week. It's Erling Haaland against Sunderland away. It's not an absolute no-brainer, but I think to go against him, you need a really good reason. I'm not sure we have that this week. Like Hincapie against Leeds at home, Cunha against Wolves at home, Saka against Villa at home. They're all definitely options if you want to back against Haaland and go differential. But I'm not sure any of them are obviously better. Like Sunderland away on paper, not a great fixture. They're in 7th place. They've only conceded 17 goals. But when you look at the expected goals conceded per 90, it's very similar to Leeds. But yet Leeds have conceded almost double the goals. So at some point, those numbers will probably start evening out a little bit and Sunderland will start conceding a few more. What better team to start scoring some goals against them than Man City? So I think Haaland probably is the best option. The problem with Hincapie is the fixture is even more difficult this week than it was last week. Leeds at home is not bad, but Wolves at home was better. And most people didn't go for him last week. So is there that temptation to go for him this week? I'm not so sure. I think the gap between Haaland and Hincapie was bigger last week than it is this week. I don't really see Sunderland as that much more difficult than Forest, but Leeds is more difficult than Wolves, I would say. The other thing with Hincapie, he's not on penalties, and I know that's not the be-all and end-all of the conversation, but it does matter. And also, this is a really interesting fact for you, Hincapie has completed as many 90 minutes this season as Mason Mount. Now, part of that is because they had other players fit before, so he never needed to play the full game. And obviously, right now, Isak's not there, Salah's not there, so you expect the minutes to go up. But he does seem to cramp quite a lot at the end of games. And right now, they need to protect him. They cannot lose him. So I don't even know if he would play the full match here. Now, the same could be said for Haaland, but I just think it's more likely Haaland gets to 90 minutes than Hincapie does. So I don't really see him as a great option to go against Haaland this week. With Cunha, if that was Bruno Fernandes fully fit, I'd be very tempted because you know what you're getting with him. But now you've got a Man United team where you're not quite sure if Mason Mount's fit. You know that Bruno Fernandes is out. Man United are really low on numbers right now because of injuries and AFCON. And I don't think it massively matters for Cunha as a pick. He loves to shoot, possibly on penalties, although that's not guaranteed either. It could be Šeško. He's got a pretty good record. I don't know, but then it's Wolves at home. And he's a midfielder. It's always nice captaining a midfielder because of the extra point for a goal, extra point for a clean sheet, etc. I quite like Cunha this week, but again, I'm not sat here thinking, yeah, I'm really tempted to go against Haaland. Whereas if that was Fernandes, I probably would be. Partly because I know what I'm getting from Bruno, and partly because the team would be better with him in it. So, I don't know, Cunha's okay. And then with Saka, you'd be backing against a Villa team that are on a ridiculous winning streak. And Saka's not really pulling up trees in terms of lots of points. The thing with Saka is, it's really easy to go against him right now in terms of a pick because the points aren't there. But I know he's capable of more. You know, if I look at any of these players on this list that's not Haaland to go 15 plus points, Saka's more than capable of doing that. But because he hasn't done that very much this season and for quite a while, we don't really see him as a captain. And plus, it is Villa. Like, I don't see it as, you know, an easy fixture for Arsenal. Even though, again, you look at the expected goals conceded, very similar to Leeds and Sunderland. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about Saka that tells me he's going to get a big score soon and remind people why he costs that much money. But I'm not confident enough to go there. So I think it's just Haaland. And if I was going to go against him, it'd probably be Cunha or Saka. Hincapie's fine, but I'd probably take the penalties from the other two. Although, if Gyökeres is playing, Saka might not even take it. Let's talk about a free hit draft for Game Week 19. A reminder, if you've got any chips left, you're going to lose them if you don't play them in Game Week 19, because we're all going to get another set of chips from Game Week 20 onwards. So if you've got your free hit left, you might as well play it, even if you're only making like 3 or 4 changes to your team. In goal, I've gone for John Victor from Nottingham Forest. I don't know if we can be super confident he'll definitely keep his place. But I've set up in a way where I've got Sells on the bench. So even if John doesn't play, Sells will play instead. And Everton at home with the players at AFCON, the Dewsbury Hall injury, etc., are a little bit weakened in attack. So I quite like that from a clean sheet perspective for Nottingham Forest. My back three is Dalot and Dorgu double up against Wolves at home. Man United defence has not been great this season, but that is not a bad fixture, and both those players are fairly attacking, especially if Dorgu plays right wing. So I think Dorgu would be a shoo-in on free hit this week. Dalot a little bit less so, but I do like him, especially at his price. And then I've gone for Lewis Hall against Burnley away. I did think about going for Van Dijk, and I could really cheapen the bench. So I could do Chow and Nico Williams to 3.8, 3.9 million defenders. But I don't know if it's necessarily worth it. Like, even if I did Chow down to a 3.9, you're saving like just over $1 million. That's still not enough to go from Dalot to Van Dijk. I'd have to make a second move as well. So that's why Van Dijk's not in there, because I've spent a lot of money in my attack instead. So Dalot, and also I quite like going for at least one double up on a defense. Like I would have actually looked at a double up on, like, you could potentially go for a double up on the Newcastle and Man United defense, but you can't pick Ramsdale right now just in case Pope plays. So you'd probably have to play Chow instead of Dalot, and then play Lemens in goal instead. Either way, I think the players I've picked are fine. The midfield, I think, will look quite similar for a lot of people. I think Cunha, Foden, and probably Gordon will be locks for most people playing free hit. I also put Palmer in. That is a bit more risky than last week. Like last week, he had a week off between games. You knew he was going to play. That's not the case this week. So Chelsea have just played on Saturday the 27th, and then they played Tuesday. Now, Palmer did go off around the 70th minute, and he wasn't happy about that, so he feels he can play more. Maresca may have brought him off because he was tiring, may have brought him off so he's ready for the next game. It's more risky this week, but I think it might be a risk worth taking. If you're a little bit less risk, like if you want to be more risk adverse, I think that's what I'm trying to say, like take less risk basically, go for Saka or just cheapen that spot and put the money elsewhere, basically. But I quite like Palmer this week. And then I've gone for Szoboszlai. Originally I had Wirtz, but I just couldn't afford it with the amount of other players I wanted to put in. So Szoboszlai's had a rest. He's definitely going to play. Probably play close to 90 minutes. His first choice penalty taker, as far as we know, with no Isak Salah. Pretty nice pick. Then up front, Hard and Nekatike. Probably don't need to explain those two picks all that much. So let's get in some of your questions. Would you do Hincapie to Gabriel this week? Now, this is a move that I'm probably going to do. So I think the answer has to be yes. Do I think it's an absolute no-brainer? Not necessarily. Like I mentioned earlier, I think there's actually a good chance that Hincapie will start this week, but probably at left back. So he's not a must-sell, but the problem you've got with him now is he's only as good as the amount of injuries that Arsenal have. So straight away now, Gabriel's back. You're not quite sure what's going on with Calafiori, but you also still don't 100% know that Hincapie is going to start. So he's a problem now in terms of minutes. So if you don't sell him this week, unless Gabriel goes and picks up an injury against Villa, you've got exactly the same problem next week. So basically, my overall thought with Hincapie is he has to go soon, this week or next week, and I quite like Gabriel. Now, I've spoken about Gabriel quite a bit this week. He's not a sure thing to now start every single game when he's off the back of an injury where he was out for like 6 weeks. But if he does play, he's the best defender in FPL. So I quite like that move. You could also sell Hincapie to someone else like a Man United defender short term or a Newcastle defender if you wanted to. But ultimately, if you've got a spare transfer, I feel like it's worth dealing with Hincapie. I would not be surprised if it's Timber, Saliba, Gabriel and Calafiori if they're all fully fit and available against Villa. So is it okay to hold on to our Bournemouth players? I'm tempted to hold Semenyo and Senesi through the tougher fixtures. On Semenyo, it's Chelsea away, Arsenal at home next 2 games, and it seems very likely that he's going to get sold in January. Now, I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, and it's not 100% certain, but it's one of those transfers that it just feels like it's a matter of time before it goes through. It's not going to wait until the summer. Bournemouth are going to cash in now, and he's probably going to go to Man City. Now, if you look at the game weeks coming up for Bournemouth, Game week 20 against Arsenal is the 3rd of January. Then they got Spurs at home on the 7th. Then there's an FA Cup break and they don't play again until the 19th. So I would say for Semenyo, if we assume he's probably going to go in the January window, I reckon you've got 3 fixtures maximum. Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, Spurs at home. Spurs at home is fine. The other two are not great. So I think if you've got a spare transfer, Semenyo is pretty sellable. You don't have to do it this week. I'm sure he'll play against Chelsea away and he'll probably play 90 minutes. It's not the end of the world if you've got to play him, but I'd be thinking about moving him on pretty soon. Obviously, if he stays, he's not a bad option. It just doesn't seem that likely. With Senesi, he's a defender less than 5 million. So obviously you can just bench him, right? It's easier to hide defenders for the most part than it is with attackers. So if you want to bench him for the next two, then play him against Spurs at home, maybe bench him for Brighton, Liverpool, then play him against Wolves away, Villa at home in 25, Everton away in 26, etc. That's fine, right? He's great for defensive contributions, one of the best defenders in the game for that. But Bournemouth defence looks awful right now. And unless they get reinforcements in January, I'm not sure how much better it's going to get. Now, recent performances from a defensive point of view have not been great. And at times they've done okay. They're probably somewhere in between, right? They're not an awful defence, but they're not a great one either. So maybe the clean sheets start to come back for Spurs at home in 21, Wolves away in 24. But actually, you look at that fixture run they got coming up, there's not much clean sheet potential there. Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, Brighton away, Liverpool at home, Villa at home, 5 of the next 8. Not great. So if you can hide Senesi and the rest of your defence looks fine, absolutely keep hold of him. But if you need to sell him, I also think that is absolutely reasonable right now. So with Cole Palmer, what's the key trigger that you're waiting for before confidently buying him? Is it fixtures turning, more sustained minutes, the eye test, or simply giving him time to build more rhythm? It's basically a combination of the fixtures turning, but probably most importantly right now, more sustained minutes. For 10.4 million, I want to be fairly confident he's going to play 80 plus minutes in most games. So if this was Cole Palmer of old, where he's playing 90 minutes every week, looking great, on penalties, etc., you'd maybe take the risk of Bournemouth at home, Man City away, Fulham away, being fixtures that on paper are not great, but that Cole Palmer can do really well. And actually right now, Bournemouth at home doesn't look bad at all. But because he's not playing guaranteed minutes, it doesn't make me want to rush in. Like his 4 recent games were 57, 57, 79, 71. So there's some positive signs there that the minutes have gone up versus those first 2 games of 57, 57. But is 71 minutes enough to buy him before Bournemouth at home, City away, Fulham away? Probably not. And also, I'm still not 100% certain whether he will start the next 3 games anyway. Like, they've just played at the weekend. They got a game on Tuesday. Then it's Sunday, which is fine. So Tuesday, Sunday turnaround is okay. But then it's Wednesday. And it wasn't that long ago that Maresca said Palmer cannot play 3 games in a week. So he's going to play at most, in my opinion, 70 minutes average per game next 3. That's not enough for 10.4 million with the fixtures they've got. So really, it's game week 24 onwards, which is an amazing fixture run for Chelsea, by the way. It's West Ham at home, Wolves away, Leeds at home, Burnley at home. Or you jump on in game week 22 for Brentford at home. But that's followed by Palace away. So I think if we get to 21, 22, and I'm still not confident in the minutes, I will just wait until 24. There is a chance I might have to pay a little bit more, but I'm kind of okay with doing that unless he's going to absolutely shoot up in price. The other problem with Chelsea, it's not just Premier League fixtures that matter. And if they don't finish in the top 8, you've got to add another 2 Champions League games to their fixture list as well. So you've got 3 Premier League games, so 19, 20, 21, then FA Cup against Charlton. He's going to get rested for that. We know he won't play that game. Then it's Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. So does he play that? Or does he get rested for the FA Cup and Carabao Cup? If he does, Brentford at home, definite start. If he plays against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup, then 3 days later it's Brentford, he may get rested. Then you've got a Champions League game. Chelsea will probably want to try and get into the top 8, so he might start that. You get the point, right? They've got a lot of fixtures coming up that aren't just Premier League. It's just not enough confidence right now. Like, we know how good he can be. We know he's a massive differential. We all want to be the first ones on him to get that big score. I'm barely even thinking about him right now. Partly because I've got Saka. So I know I've got an easy Saka to Palmer switch at any point that I want to do it. But Saka's playing 90 minutes every game. But I know people, like, no one really likes Saka right now. There's all this talk about, you know, Rice is better than Saka. Fair enough. From a value perspective, he is. But Saka's at least getting good minutes. He's ticking over with points, and you can be pretty confident that's going to continue to happen. With Palmer, he just doesn't have the fitness right now. So I can just hold Saka and decide when to move to Palmer at any point. So it's minutes and it's fixtures turning, really. So why are you considering Newcastle defenders more than Dalot or Dorgu? For me, it's really just a long-term thought process. So with Dalot or Dorgu, if you go for them, it's 3 game weeks only, in my opinion. So Wolves at home, Leeds away, Burnley away, which does look good on paper, but then it's City at home, Arsenal away, which are not great at all. And longer term, you've just got no guarantee that they'll keep getting minutes. From what we've seen so far this season, Dalot left wing back is ahead of Dorgu, and Ahmad plays right wing back. So once AFCON finishes, Ahmad presumably will come back into this team. But does it guarantee that Dalot will keep starting? Could it be Dorgu? Possibly. Either way, they're both a minutes risk, longer term. And then he got the City at home, Arsenal away. So it's 3 game weeks and that's it. And with Dorgu, by the way, if he gets a yellow card this week, he misses the Leeds game anyway. So there is some risk there. Now, obviously, they're cheaper. Dorgu at 4.1 million, playing right wing. I fully get why people want to take the punt, but I'm just not that concerned about it for just 3 game weeks. If it was a case of Dorgu is absolutely nailed to play right wing for the next 6-7 game weeks, it's a different conversation. Whereas with Newcastle, they also have a good set of fixtures, but not just for the next 3, it's the next 4. So it's Burnley away, Palace at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away. So that looks quite nice. And then if I go for someone like Chow, who's probably more guaranteed minutes longer term than someone like Lewis Hall, okay, if I have to play him in 23 against Villa at home, that's fine. If I have to play him against Brentford at home in 25, that's also fine. Because I know, from what we've seen so far, he's absolutely nailed on in that right centre-back spot for Newcastle. He's not coming out of the team anytime soon. Whereas if I look at Man United and I get to game week 24, Fulham at home, also not a terrible fixture to play them in. Will they be playing? Not necessarily. So it's both a short-term thought process that they've got an extra good fixture over the... I mean, you could say Palace at home in 20 is not great, but it's okay, right? And they've still got 3 other good fixtures. So the next 4 will look all right. And then longer term, if I get stuck with Chow, that's okay. With Lewis Hall, by the way, he's absolutely first choice left back for Newcastle. You just know with the amount of fixtures they've got, once Dan Burn is back fit, there's competition there. So Lewis Hall, I'd be less sure about longer term. Although when we get to game week 25, etc., if he's still fit, he will probably keep playing. So that's why I'm looking more at Newcastle defenders. But if you want someone really short-term that's a lot cheaper, nothing wrong with going with Dalot or Dorgu. So nice and simple question. What do we do with Virgil van Dijk? Look, he's not been great for FPL whatsoever. Not great value for money. But the answer for most people is you just keep him for Leeds at home. And then you reassess from game week 20 onwards. If you could, you would go back in time and never buy him. And that would have been the correct decision. But you can't erase what's already happened. You're now assessing it week to week. He's got Leeds at home. It's a midweek fixture. You know he'll start in. There's an okay chance of a clean sheet. He's got some attacking threat. We've seen that many times before, even though it hasn't happened this season. He's okay this week. Is he great next week? Not so much. Is he great the week after against Arsenal away? No. So maybe you look to sell him then. It's going to depend on your squad setup. I know a lot of people are thinking about doing Van Dijk to Gabriel. Don't hate that whatsoever. Gabriel is probably the best FPL defender that you can buy, but it doesn't have to be done this week. Gabriel's only just back from injury. I'm probably going to buy him, by the way, so I don't think it's a complete risk, but there is some risk attached. And Villa at home is more difficult than Leeds at home. So I'd probably keep Van Dijk this week, see what happens with Gabriel, then maybe make the switch next week. For some people, it might actually be the case that you play him against Leeds, you play him against Fulham, you bench him against Arsenal, then you play him against Burnley. All these different approaches can work. There's no right or wrong answer, but I fully get at this stage of the season, people just want to get rid of him, and that's fine. I just probably wouldn't do it this week. So what are your thoughts on Aidan Heaven at 3.8 million? He's picking up defensive contributions regularly and seems nailed at the moment. I probably wouldn't buy him ahead of a Dorgu. Like, Dorgu is not guaranteed to keep playing right wing, but there is some potential there for quite an exciting pick over the next 3 game weeks. If you've got the extra 0.3 million to spend, I would just go for Dorgu. And the reason for that is after the next 3 game weeks, I just don't think Man United defenders are worth looking at. Defensively, they've not been great. The fixtures get worse, and you can't guarantee any of these players' minutes. Dalot, Dorgu, and Heaven. Like, once De Ligt and Maguire are back, they are then competition for those centre-back places. And by the way, if Amorim sticks to a back 4, which I don't think he will, but if he does, there's only 2 centre-back spots. You've got Martinez, who can also play left centre-back, and then Maguire and De Ligt to come back as well. So Heaven's place in the team, yes, he looks nailed right now. He's nailed until he's not, and that could be quite quickly. So I probably wouldn't do it. If you're in a situation where you want to downgrade a defender to free up a lot of money elsewhere, and that defender is going to become your 5th defender that most of the time you don't play, and you want to go as cheap as possible, then I don't hate it going for Heaven at only 3.8. But long term, you're not probably going to get to play him that much because you're not going to be able to rely on him continuing to start for Man United. So who would be top of your list of replacements for David Raya? And obviously, if you're looking for a new goalkeeper in general, this also applies to you as well. I would probably go quite a bit cheaper. And what I mean by that is I wouldn't be looking to buy like a Pickford at 5.5. Like, he's not bad. The fixtures that Everton have got coming up are quite good. And he tends to do pretty well over the course of a season. But I think if you've got Raya and you're selling him, you should probably just go, like, basically, if you've got Raya from anywhere between like 5.5 to 5.8 million, the price that you bought him at, I can't really see much reason to move to Pickford. Surely the reason to come off Raya is to go a bit cheaper. Maybe it's just to free up an Arsenal spot. Fair enough. But I think for most people, I'd just spend less money on that position. I think Sanchez is probably where I would go. 4.9 million. Bournemouth at home this week doesn't look terrible. City away afterwards, not great. Then the fixture run for Chelsea is really nice. Like right from kind of game weeks 21 to 27. Bearing in mind at some point you've got a second wild card to use as well. So it's not like Sanchez comes in and you just have to have him for the rest of the season. And that fixture run between 24 and 27 is so nice. West Ham at home, Wolves away, Leeds at home, Burnley at home. The only slight issue with Sanchez is you lock yourself out from 3 other Chelsea players. Like there is a scenario where maybe you want Chalobah, Palmer, and then another attacker like João Pedro, Neto, Enzo Fernandez. But honestly, with the rotation that sometimes happens when Chelsea have got a lot of fixtures, putting the goalkeeper in is not a bad option. So Sanchez is really nice. Otherwise, I'd probably go for like a Kelleher at 4.5 million. I think Brentford's fixtures overall in the short term are not bad. I think longer term, when you get to like 24, 25, 26, it's Villa away, Newcastle away, Arsenal at home, which is not great. But then after that, 27 onwards, pretty good again. I think the difficulty right now is we're not completely sure what the blank and double game week schedule will look like or which teams will be involved. So it's hard to know exactly which players to go for. But as a kind of short-term and a longer-term move, Kelleher's really nice. I just don't know if you're going to be getting to kind of game week 32 without wildcarding. If you were, I like those fixtures. Otherwise, it's probably Verbruggen, who rotates okay with the Bravkas, only 4.4 million. West Ham away, Burnley at home next 2. Then it's City away, which is not great. But after that, again, the fixtures are quite good right up until, I don't know, kind of game week 28. So I would probably go Sanchez. And then after that, it's Brentford or Brighton's goalkeeper for me. But also, just a quick note, I know people are frustrated with Raya because he's quite expensive. You know, you always see these comments going around. It's not as exciting as having Timber or Gabriel, etc. I get that. But if you've got Raya, is a goalkeeper transfer really worth it? Unless you're desperate for the cash or absolutely desperate to free up an Arsenal spot, I'd probably just keep him, at least for now. If you've enjoyed that video and found it useful, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'll be back later on today for the deadline stream. It's a 6 o'clock PM UK time deadline, so I'll be live at 4 PM UK. So make sure to join me for that. Any other news we've got, I'll talk about that. And hopefully at that point, I'll have my transfers locked in. I'm not going to talk about my team in this video because it's not really any different to the team selection video. I'm either going to do Hincapie to Hull or Chow, or I'm going to do that move plus Wirtz to Szoboszlai and get Gabriel in as well. Not quite decided. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you again later.